Millionaire sees his black childhood girlfriend selling lemonade and discovers she's been waiting. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. Javier Castillo stepped out of his shiny silver car, fixing his fancy suit. The hot sun in Phoenix was really strong. Javier was 45 years old and had everything. Lots of money, a big business, a huge apartment with a great view, and more money in the bank than he could count. But something was missing. He knew exactly what, or rather, who it was. "Mr. Castillo, we need your signature on these papers," his assistant called, running to him with a big stack of documents. Javier was about to close a huge business deal, but his mind was somewhere else. He had just driven past an old street corner, and what he saw made him stop. A small lemonade stand. It looked just like the one he remembered from 28 years ago. And the person standing behind it, he would recognize her anywhere. Isabella Jenkins. "Cancel my meetings for today," Javier told his assistant. His eyes stayed fixed on the lemonade stand across the street. His heart was beating fast, just like when he was 17 and sneaking out to see Isabella after his parents had told him not to. Isabella hadn't seen him yet. She was smiling as she handed lemonade to a young couple. She still had the same bright smile, though her hair now had a few gray strands. She still stood with the same kindness and strength that had made him fall in love all those years ago. $5 for 2 glasses, she said. Her voice brought back so many memories. Warm summer nights, whispered promises, and the painful goodbye when his parents sent him away to college, far from her. Javier kept watching as Isabella wiped down the table, just like she used to clean up after their study sessions in her mother's kitchen. Back then, her mom had been the only adult who supported them. His parents thought Isabella wasn't good enough for their wealthy family. "You need to focus on your future, Javier," his father had said. "The Castillo name means something in this town." Those words had haunted him for years, especially after he stopped answering Isabella's letters. And now, here he was, one of the richest real estate developers in Arizona, standing frozen because the love of his life was still selling lemonade at the same corner. He remembered the first time they met. He had been jogging when she called out, "Best lemonade in Phoenix, only 50 cents. Today, her sign read, "Isabella's famous lemonade, still the best in Phoenix." She had kept her promise to her grandmother, who had taught her the special recipe. Some businessmen walked past Javier, giving him strange looks. They probably wondered why a man whose face was on business magazines was staring at a lemonade stand like a shy teenager. "Is everything okay, Mr. Castillo?" his assistant asked, confused by his behavior. Javier loosened his tie and smiled. "Everything's perfect." He took a step toward the stand. For the first time in 28 years, everything felt just right. Isabella was counting her money when she heard footsteps. "Welcome to Isabella's famous lemon." She stopped talking as she looked up. Her eyes went wide. "Javier?" The world seemed to freeze. The busy street, the honking cars, the talking people, it all faded. It was just the two of them, standing by a lemonade stand, just like that summer long ago. "Your sign still needs work," Javier said softly, teasing her like he used to. "But I bet the lemonade is still the best." Isabella's hands trembled slightly as she picked up a cup. "Every day for 28 years, she whispered. "Same recipe, same corner." "Every day?" Javier asked, feeling emotional. Isabella nodded as she poured the lemonade. "I promised someone once that I'd never give up on my dreams." She looked him in the eyes. "Any of them." Javier took the cup, their fingers touching for a second. He took a sip. It tasted exactly the same, sweet, tangy, and full of memories. He saw something in her eyes, hope, hurt, and something that made his heart ache. "You've been waiting for me," he said. "Not waiting," Isabella corrected. "Living, working, running my business." She pointed to the stand. "But yes, I kept our corner. Someone had to remember." A taxi honked, snapping Javier back to reality. He was supposed to be in a meeting right now. The papers in his assistant's hands were for a new project. He was planning to buy this whole neighborhood and build luxury condos. But now, looking at Isabella, he knew that would never happen. I remember everything, he said. He placed a $100 bill on the counter. The promises, the dreams, the love, and I'm done running from them. Isabella picked up the bill and held it out to him. Your money's no good here, Javier. It never was. Then let me pay another way, he said. Let me make up for lost time, if you'll let me. That night, as Isabella cleaned up her lemonade stand, she couldn't stop thinking about Javier. He had stayed for over an hour, talking just like they used to. Before he left, he had asked to see her again. I own a small diner now, she had told him. It's nothing fancy like your restaurants, but it pays the bills. The lemonade stand is just a tradition. At home, in her diner called Isabella's Place, she couldn't focus. Her daughter, Sophia, noticed. Mom, you keep wiping the same spot over and over, Sophia said. She was 26 and looked just like Isabella when she was young. You won't believe who I saw today, Isabella said, putting the cloth down. She told Sophia about Javier. Sophia's eyes widened. Wait, Javier? The one from all your stories? The one who broke your heart and got rich? What did he want? He said he never stopped thinking about me. Sophia crossed her arms. And you believe him? After what his family did to you? Javier's parents had done more than send him away. They had made sure Isabella's mom lost her job. They had stopped her from getting a college scholarship. They tried to break her. That was his parents, not him, Isabella said, though she wasn't sure. Just then the diner door chimed. An older, elegant woman walked in. Isabella's heart stopped. It was Gabriela Castillo, Javier's mother. Still serving food to regular folks, I see, Gabriela said, looking around with disapproval. She still looked rich and powerful. I heard my son visited you today. Sophia stepped forward protectively, but Isabella held her arm. Mrs. Castillo, after 28 years, you still can't let go? Gabriela smiled coldly. I'm here to make you an offer. She pulled out her checkbook. Name your price. Excuse me? Isabella's voice was calm but firm. For the diner. The lemonade stand. This whole block, actually, Gabriela said. Javier doesn't know I'm here, but I know him. He's always had a weakness for you. I won't let him ruin everything because of some silly old feelings. Sophia gasped, but Isabella just laughed. You haven't changed at all, she said. Still thinking money can buy everything, still trying to control your son. Don't be foolish, Gabriela snapped. Javier has responsibilities, a reputation. Get out of my diner, Isabella said. Your money couldn't buy me then, and it can't buy me now. Gabriela's face hardened. You'll regret this. Javier always comes to his senses. But Isabella just smiled. We'll see. After Eleanor left, Sophia gave her mom a big hug. I'm so proud of you, Mom, she said. But Eleanor is right about one thing. You're not 17 anymore. Are you sure you want to go through all this again? Isabella looked around her diner. The walls were covered with photos from the past 28 years. There was her wedding picture with Sophia's dad, a good man who had died too soon. There were pictures of Sophia growing up and a newspaper article about when Isabella finally opened the diner. Isabella smiled at Sophia. You know what your grandma used to say? She asked. She said, true love is like her lemonade recipe. The ingredients never change. They just get better with time. The next morning, Isabella found a bouquet of yellow roses waiting at her lemonade stand. There was a card with it. It said, I heard about my mother visiting you. I'm so sorry. Some things never change, like her stubbornness, how brave you are, or how much I regret letting them come between us. Have dinner with me tonight. Isabella held the card close to her heart. At that moment, she felt both 17 and 45 years old. The sun was rising over Phoenix, filling the sky with warm colors. For the first time in years, she let herself believe in second chances. That evening, Isabella met Javier for dinner at a fancy Italian restaurant. It was the kind of place Isabella never went to. Elegant, expensive, and not her style at all. She smoothed her simple blue dress, the one Sophia had made her buy for special occasions. She tried not to feel nervous about the valet parking and shining chandeliers. "You look beautiful," Javier said when he saw her. He was still wearing his business suit, but he had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves. He looked more like the boy she remembered. "This place is too fancy, Javier," Isabella admitted. "I would have been happy with a burger at my diner." Javier's smile faded a little. "I wanted to impress you. Old habits, I guess." He hesitated, then asked, "Do you want to get out of here?" 20 minutes later, they were sitting in a booth at Isabella's diner, sharing fries and old memories. Sophia was working the evening shift, and keeping an eye on them while pretending not to watch. "Remember when we used to share a milkshake at Old Miki's diner?" Javier asked, dipping a fry in ketchup. "2 straws, 1 shake, and my grandma pretending not to notice when we stayed past closing time," Isabella said with a smile. "Your grandma loved you," Javier said softly. "Even after everything that happened, she never said a bad word about you. She just said some people need more time to find their way back home." "She was right," Javier said. "I've spent years making money, building a business, but every time I succeeded, I felt empty inside. Every time I saw a lemonade stand, I stopped, hoping it was you." "Why didn't you ever come back?" Isabella asked the question that had haunted her for 28 years. "After college? After you made your own money? After you didn't need your parents' approval anymore?" Javier looked down at his coffee cup, shame on his face. "I was a coward. By the time I had the courage to stand up to my parents, I heard you were married. I thought I'd lost my chance forever." "Danny was a good man," Isabella said softly. "He loved me and Sophia with all his heart. Before he died 5 years ago, he made me promise to be happy again someday." Sophia walked over, holding a coffee pot. She kept her face serious as she refilled their cups. "Can I get you anything else?" "Your mom's famous apple pie," Javier said with a grin. "If it's half as good as her lemonade, it must be amazing." "It's better," Sophia said, a tiny smile breaking through. "Mom's been perfecting the recipe since before I was born." After Sophia walked away, Javier leaned closer. "She doesn't like me much, does she?" "She's protective," Isabella explained. "She grew up hearing stories about young love and heartbreak. She's afraid history will repeat itself." "I'm not a scared teenager anymore," Javier said firmly. "I've spent 28 years building an empire. But what's the point of success if I can't share it with the person who believed in me first?" The diner bell rang. They turned and saw Hector Castillo, Javier's father, walk in. He looked older, but his eyes were just as cold. "So it's true," Hector said, looking at them. "Eleanor said you were making a fool of yourself, but I had to see it with my own eyes." Javier stood up, his face hard. "Father, this is neither the time nor the place." "On the contrary," Hector snapped. "This is exactly the time and place. Do you know what's at stake? The Castillo Group is about to merge with Estrada Industries. Do you think they'll want to do business with a man who's running around with—" He waved a hand at Isabella. Isabella stood up too. "With what? A diner owner? A woman who worked hard, raised her daughter alone, and never needed your money to be happy?" The diner was silent. Sophia had moved closer, ready to step in if needed. "You're just like your mother," Hector spat. "Always thinking love conquers all. Well, love doesn't pay the bills. Love doesn't build empires." "Love built this diner," Isabella said. "Love kept me going when my husband died. Love made me strong enough to raise a daughter who knows her worth. What did your kind of love build, Mr. Castillo? A son who had to hide his feelings? A family that only cares about money?" Javier took Isabella's hand. "The merger can wait, Father, or it can happen without me. I'm done letting you and Mother control my life." Hector's face turned red. "You're making a mistake." "No," Javier said. "My mistake was listening to you 28 years ago." He turned to Isabella. "I'm sorry our evening was interrupted again." Isabella squeezed his hand. "Life is messy. Always has been. The question is, are you ready for messy?" Javier looked at his father, then back at Isabella. In her eyes, he saw the same love that had captured his heart all those years ago. I've been ready for 28 years. I just didn't know it. Hector stormed out. Sophia brought over 2 slices of apple pie. She set them down without a word, but looked less upset than before. Your father's going to cause trouble, Isabella said. Javier took a bite of the pie and smiled. Let him try. Some things are worth fighting for. And this pie? Definitely worth fighting for. Isabella laughed. Outside, the Phoenix night was warm and full of stars, just like the summer nights when they were young. Back then, they thought love was all they needed. Maybe they were right. Maybe they just needed 28 years to figure it out. Sophia stopped him from talking. She needed someone who liked her for who she was, not for what she had or what she owed. Dad made that mistake. He thought he could make her happy by trying to get rich fast. He loved us, but his pride ruined everything. The door of the diner opened, and Isabella walked in. She looked tired but strong. She stopped when she saw Javier. You heard? She asked. Why didn't you tell me? Javier asked. Because I'm not a kid anymore, Isabella said. I don't need a hero, Javier. I need someone who trusts me to fight my own battles, even if I lose everything. Isabella looked around the diner. There were pictures on the walls and regular Castañers who felt like family. In the corner booth, she had helped Sophia with homework and dreams. I haven't lost everything, she said softly. I still have my daughter, my dignity, and a really good lemonade recipe. Javier felt something change inside him. This was the Isabella he had loved. Strong, brave, and not afraid of hard times. She didn't need his money. She needed his heart, his trust, and his respect. Have dinner with me tonight, he said. Not at a fancy restaurant. Here in your diner. I want to hear everything about Danny, about the money problems, about your dreams. No business talk? Isabella asked carefully. No business talk, Javier promised. Just us, being honest. Sophia watched them from behind the counter. Her face softened. I'll make Mom's special meatloaf, she said, the one that makes problems feel smaller. As Javier walked back to his office, his phone buzzed. Messages from Camila, his parents, and the board members. They all wanted answers about the company. But for the first time in his life, Javier didn't care about business. He had 60 days to prove to Isabella that she could trust him again. 60 days to show her that love didn't mean losing herself. 60 days to remember who he was before money and power changed everything. In his pocket, he still had the wrapper from the lemonade he bought yesterday. Isabella had written on it, just like she used to write on napkins in high school, life is sweet enough when you are true to yourself. He smiled. It had taken him 28 years to understand. Now, he had to prove he had really learned. The emergency meeting was at 7 in the morning. Javier sat at the big table. His dad paced by the window. Camila Estrada checked her nails like she didn't care. The other board members looked nervous. The numbers don't lie, Hector Castillo said, pointing at the charts. Our stock has dropped 15% because of the merger rumors. The shareholders are scared. They're scared because you made them scared, Javier said calmly. You spread the rumors yourself. Camila stood up, smoothing her fancy suit. Javier, darling, we're trying to help you. This problem with Isabella is making you lose focus. The Isabella Jenkins situation, Hector started. Stop, Javier said sharply. My personal life is not up for discussion. It is when it affects the company, Hector snapped. Do you even know about her late husband's gambling debts? He borrowed money from Dante Rojas. The room went quiet. Everyone knew Dante Rojas. He was a dangerous man. Isabella probably doesn't even know where the money came from, Javier said, but doubt crept in. Wake up, son. Hector slammed the table. She's using you. Why else would she sell lemonade on that exact corner for so many years? Right when we planned to build there? Javier stood up slowly. You think she's been tricking me for 28 years just to get money from me? Camila spoke smoothly. The merger would secure our future. Think about your employees, Javier, their jobs, their families. The weight of responsibility pushed down on Javier. He had 5,000 employees counting on him. Could he risk their jobs for love? His phone buzzed. A message from Isabella. Sold out of lemonade early today. Some Cusdaniers came because they read about us in the paper. Funny how life works. She had no idea about the business war happening over her little lemonade stand. While he sat in a fancy office, she was cleaning tables and worrying about loans, but still smiling at Cusdaniers. I need time, Javier said. The merger decision can wait. Camila laughed coldly. Estrada Industries won't wait forever. Neither will I. Then don't wait, Javier said. If the deal only works by controlling my personal life, maybe it's not the right deal. He walked out. His father called after him, angry. Camila's stare was icy. His driver was waiting, but Javier waved him away. He needed to walk. His feet took him to Isabella's diner. Through the window, he saw her teaching Sofia how to make apple pie. They were laughing, flour on their faces. A black car pulled up. Dante Rojas stepped out, dressed in an expensive suit. Mr. Castillo, Martinez said, smiling. But his eyes were cold. I heard you've been asking about Donnie's debts. Javier stood straight. How much? Excuse me? How much to clear Danny's debt? I'll pay it all. Martinez chuckled. Just like that? No questions? Just like that. You know, her husband said the same thing once. Whatever it takes to make Isabella happy. Look how that turned out. Javier stepped closer. I'm not Danny. If you go near Isabella or her diner again, you'll regret it. Martinez laughed. Relax. Bring me $500,000 by Friday and the debt disappears. But something tells me Isabella won't thank you for it. Javier held the envelope Martinez gave him. Inside was proof that Isabella had signed some of Danny's loan papers. He looked back at the diner. Isabella was showing a kid how to fold a napkin into a flower. She had done the same for him in high school. His phone buzzed. More messages from the board, from Camila, from his father. The Castillo business was in danger because he had fallen in love again with a woman who sold lemonade and made apple pies. Isabella needed to know the truth about Danny's debts, about Martinez, about everything. But if he told her, would she leave him? If he paid the debt without telling her, would he be just like Danny, making choices for her? The sun was setting, painting the sky pink and gold. Inside, Isabella was laughing. The same laugh that had made him believe in forever when they were teenagers. Some things were worth risking everything for. But what was he really risking? His company or his last chance at true love? Isabella was closing the diner when Sofia ran in, holding a tablet. Mom, you need to see this. The online headline made Isabella's heart stop. Castillo Group CEO spotted with loan shark. Connection to Isabella Jenkins. They're bringing up Dad's past. Sofia said, how did they find out about Mr. Martinez? Before Isabella could answer, the diner door opened. Eleanor Castillo walked in with Camila Estrada. We need to talk, Eleanor said, sliding into a booth. Woman to woman. Camila crossed her arms. This could have been handled nicely, but we're out of time. Isabella sat up straight. Say what you came to say. Eleanor placed a folder on the table. Your husband borrowed $2 million. He left you with debt. Debt. Your signature is here. You knew. Isabella's hands shook. I signed because Danny said it was a business loan. I didn't know. Eleanor leaned in. Javier wants to risk everything for you. Are you willing to let him? Isabella felt the weight of 28 years. What do you want from me? Camila put a contract on the table. Sign this paper, she said. Give your diner and the corner lot to Estrada Industries. We will pay all your debts. The bank, Martinez, everything. You and your daughter can go somewhere new and start fresh. Javier looked at Isabella. His voice was soft. We will focus on what really matters. Gabriela, his mother, smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. The merger will happen. The Castillo family name will stay strong, and you, she said coldly, will get a lot of money for your sacrifice. Sofia, Isabella's daughter, grabbed the contract. Do you really think money is more important to us than Sophia? Isabella interrupted. Please give us a moment. Sophia didn't want to leave, but stepped away. Isabella looked at the two rich women sitting in front of her. They had everything she never did: money, power, and a fancy life. But they had never felt the joy of working hard, making customers happy, or teaching a child that being a good person is more important than being rich. 28 years ago, Isabella said slowly, you tried to control love with money. You sent Javier away. You took my scholarship. You made my mom lose her job. You thought you won. Gabriella's smile faded a little. But you never understood, Isabella continued. Every day I sold lemonade on that corner. It wasn't because I was waiting for Javier. It was because I wanted to prove you were wrong. Love isn't about money or business deals. It's about staying true to yourself. She stood up and smoothed her apron. I don't need to see your contract. My answer is no. Camila got angry. Don't be foolish. Martinez won't be as patient as we are. Maybe not, Isabella said, but I'd rather face him honestly than sell my soul. Gabriella gathered her papers. Javier will find out the truth about Danny's debts and your lies. Do you think he will still love you then? Isabella's heart hurt, but her voice was strong. If Javier loves me, he will understand. And if he doesn't, she gave a sad smile, then maybe some love stories are meant to stay in the past. After they left, Sophia hugged her mom tightly. What are we going to do? Isabella looked around her diner. The old booths where she had served so many meals, the wall of pictures that told her life story, the dreams she had built one step at a time. We'll do what we always do, she said. Face tomorrow with our heads held high. She took a deep breath. And maybe it's time to tell Javier the whole truth about Donnie before someone else does. Outside, the neon sign of Isabella's place flickered in the growing darkness. 28 years of memories lived in that light, some happy, some sad, all part of who she was. No money could buy that history. No threat could take it away. She just hoped Javier would understand why she had kept Danny's secrets for so long. Javier sat alone in his big office, looking at the city lights. The envelope from Martinez was open on his desk. Papers were spread out in front of him, showing proof that Isabella knew about the bad loans. His phone buzzed. Another message from Camila about the business deal. Another from his father about the big meeting tomorrow. But one message caught his eye. It was from Isabella. We need to talk. Come to the diner after closing. The drive felt longer than usual. When he got there, the closed sign was up, but he could see Isabella sitting at their usual booth. 2 cups of coffee were on the table. Your mother and Camila visited me today, Isabella said as Javier sat down. They showed me the loan papers, the same ones Martinez must have given you. The silence between them felt heavy. Finally, Javier asked, Why didn't you tell me? Isabella wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. Because I was ashamed, not just of the debts, but because I didn't see the truth before. Danny was always chasing big dreams. He wanted to give me a rich life, the fancy house, the cars, everything. So he borrowed money from Martinez. Martinez? Javier said softly. Isabella nodded. At first I thought it was just business loans. Danny said he had investors, that everything was legal. By the time I realized the truth, it was too late. Martinez owned him, owned us. And after Danny died, Isabella's voice shook. Martinez came to the funeral. He stood by Danny's grave and told me not to worry, that he would come for what he was owed when the time was right. Javier leaned closer. Isabella, I can help. I can pay? No. Isabella's voice was firm. That's exactly what Danny did. Throw money at the problem, but it doesn't fix anything. It just covers the truth. What truth? That I was a coward, Isabella whispered. I signed those papers because I was scared. I let Danny handle Martinez because I didn't want to see reality. And now, I might lose everything anyway. Javier reached for her hand. You won't lose anything. We'll fight this together, like we did when we were young. Isabella pulled her hand away. You chose your family's approval then. Your money, your future. I was young and stupid, Javier said. I'm not that person anymore. Aren't you? Isabella walked to the wall of pictures. Your mother told me the merger is worth billions. Your company needs it. Camila is waiting to be your perfect wife, and I have a failing diner and a bad man coming for me. Javier turned her to face him. None of that matters. It should. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. I'm not worth losing everything for. That's not true, Javier said. 28 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life by leaving you. Everything I built, money, power, it all feels empty without you. Isabella gave a sad smile. Pretty words. But words don't fix my debts. Words don't change the fact that we come from different worlds. Then let me prove it with actions, Javier said. Tomorrow I'm holding a press conference. I'm telling the world the truth about us. You can't, Isabella gasped. It's just a company, Isabella. I built it once. I can do it again, but I can't lose you again. The diner was quiet. The neon sign outside cast a warm glow over them. If you do this, Isabella said, there's no going back. Your family will never forgive you. The board might fire you. Javier touched her face gently. 28 years ago, I picked the easy path. This time, I choose love. Isabella thought about her daughter, her diner, her teenage self who had believed love could conquer anything. If we do this, she said, we do it honestly. No secret payoffs, no tricks, just us, even if it means losing everything. Sometimes, Javier said, you have to lose everything to find what really matters. The next morning, every news channel played the same story. Javier stood in front of his company's building, speaking into a bunch of microphones. The business deal with Estrada Industries will not happen, he said. Castillo Group will now focus on helping communities, not just making money. At her diner, Isabella watched the broadcast with Sophia and her regular customers. Her hands shook as she poured coffee. Everyone stared at the small TV on the wall, waiting to see what would happen next. Miki, the old man who always came to the diner, looked up from his newspaper. Is he crazy? He asked. Isabella's heart beat fast, but she stood tall. Some things are more important than money, she said softly. Just then, the bell above the diner door rang. Dante Rojas walked in with two men in fancy suits. The diner got really quiet. Nice speech your boyfriend gave, Martinez said as he sat on a stool. Very touching. Very expensive. Sophia, Isabella's daughter, stepped closer to her, but Isabella shook her head, telling Sophia to stay back. What do you want, Dante? Isabella asked. Just breakfast, he said with a cold smile. And to remind you that stories won't pay your debt. $2 million plus 8 years of interest. That makes it about $5 million now. The other customers quickly finished their meals and left, sneaking worried looks at Isabella. Only Miki stayed, pretending to read his newspaper, but watching closely. I don't have that kind of money, Isabella said, her voice steady. You know that. But your boyfriend does, Martinez replied. In fact, after that speech, I think we should raise the interest. Big cases like his are always complicated. Before Isabella could say anything, the door burst open. A woman named Gabriela Castillo walked in, her face red with anger. Do you have any idea what you've done? She shouted at Isabella. The board is meeting right now to kick Javier out. Martinez turned to her with interest. Mrs. Castillo, what a pleasure. I don't think we've met properly, though I worked with your husband on some special projects a few years ago. Gabriela froze, looking pale. Isabella's eyes widened. That's how you knew about Martinez, she said, because Hector used him too. How dare you? Gabriela snapped, but Martinez just laughed. The perfect Castillo family, he said, always judging others, but not afraid to get their hands dirty when needed. Remember that deal in 2019? The one where you needed my help to convince some owners to sell their land? The bell chimed again. This time, Camila Estrada walked in, looking like a model. Well, isn't this interesting? She said, smiling. All of Javier's problems in one room. Get out, Sophia said bravely. We're closed. Not until we settle this, Camila said. Javier is throwing away everything for this. She waved her hand at Isabella like she wasn't important. The board meeting starts in an hour. He needs to come to his senses. Or what? Isabella asked. You'll tell everyone I know Martinez? Make me lose my diner? Camila nodded. Business is business. Isabella walked to a wall of photos, touching one of her and Danny, her late husband, from when they first opened the diner. You know what I've learned in 28 years? That everything looks different in the light of day. She turned back to face them all, Martinez with his threats, Gabriella with her tricks, and Camila with her big dreams. So let's put everything in the light, every dirty deal, every secret loan. Let the world see how the great Castillo family really made their money. You wouldn't dare. Gabriella gasped. Try me, Isabella said, her voice like steel. I've spent 28 years keeping other people's secrets. Maybe it's time to tell the truth. Martinez stood up slowly. Be careful, Isabella. Truth can be dangerous. So can desperation, Isabella said. You want your money? Fine, but we do this legally, with real paperwork. No more shadows. Camila laughed. You really think you can play at our level? One word from me and Estrada Industries will crush Castillo Group, and Javier will lose everything. Maybe, said a new voice. Everyone turned. Javier stood in the doorway, his father, Hector Castillo, beside him. But maybe not, Javier added. Heck stepped forward, looking tired. It's over, Gabriella, he said. The games, the lies, I just spoke to the board. I told them everything. Hector, no, Gabriella whispered. Everything, he repeated. About Martinez, about the deals, about how we've been running things for years. And you know what? They're not kicking Javier out. They're kicking us out. All of us who played dirty. Camila's smile disappeared. The merger was never real, was it? Javier said. Estrada Industries is under investigation. That's why you needed this deal, to hide your problems behind our good reputation. Martinez sighed and stood up. Well, this has been interesting, but business is business. The debt still needs to be paid. It will be, Javier said, but legally, with fair terms, unless you want to explain your loans to the FBI. Silence filled the diner. Isabella felt lighter, as if a heavy weight had finally lifted. Gabriella was the first to leave, her pride shattered. Camila followed, already calling someone, trying to fix her mess. Martinez left last, pausing at the door. You've changed the game, he told Isabella. Let's hope you're ready for what comes next. When they were gone, Hector turned to Isabella. I owe you an apology. Many, actually. Javier put his arm around Isabella. It's not over. There will be trouble from this. I know, Isabella said, smiling. But this time we face it together, in the light. Miki finally spoke up from behind his newspaper. So, can we get breakfast now? All this drama made me hungry. Isabella laughed. Coming right up, Miki? The usual? Javier rolled up his sleeves. Actually, let me help. I think it's time I learned how real people make an honest living. The morning sun shone through the diner windows, making everything bright. Outside, reporters gathered to talk about the drama at Castillo Group. But inside Isabella's place, something real was happening. A love story 28 years in the making, finally ready to begin. The next few weeks brought more change than Isabella had seen in years. The story of Javier giving up billions for love had made headlines. Every morning, people lined up outside the diner, hoping to taste Isabella's famous lemonade and maybe see the couple who had become the city's favorite love story. Mom, we need more help, Sophia said one morning, looking at the crowd. We can't handle all these customers. Isabella wiped her forehead. I know, honey, but we still have the bank loan hanging over us. Actually, Javier said, walking in with a smile, I think I have a solution. The last few weeks had changed him too. After stepping down as CEO, he had been learning the diner business. He was there every morning before sunrise, flipping pancakes, making coffee, and perfecting Isabella's lemonade recipe. What solution? Isabella asked. Javier grinned and pulled out some papers. I've been talking to the Small Business Association. There's a special program for old businesses like this one. Since Isabella's place has been around for 28 years, we qualify for a loan with fair terms and no tricks. Isabella looked at the papers. The rules were fair, not like Mr. Martinez's hard rules. This deal would help them hire more people and even make the kitchen bigger. Javier smiled and said, I found something interesting in some old files. A long time ago, my parents had a big plan. It wasn't just about building fancy homes. They wanted to help small shops stay open too. Sophia leaned over to see the pictures on Javier's tablet. So the diner can stay? She asked. Not just stay, Javier said, smiling. It can be the heart of a happy neighborhood, a real community. Isabella felt tears in her eyes. Javier's company was changing. No more sneaky deals, no more unfair business. Javier's dad, Hector, helped make things right. Just then, the bell above the door rang. Hector walked in, wearing comfy clothes, looking happy and free. The paperwork is finished, he told Javier. Gabriela agreed to the divorce. She is moving to California to be with her sister. Isabella touched Javier's arm. Are you okay? Javier nodded. My mom made her choice. She didn't want to change, but my dad is trying. Hector smiled and pulled something from behind his back. I believe you promised to teach me how to make that famous apple pie. Isabella laughed. You want to bake? Hector looked around at the busy diner. If I want to be part of this family, I should do more than just give business advice. The word family made Isabella's heart race. She and Javier hadn't talked about marriage yet. Both had sad pasts and both wanted to take their time to make something real. Hey, Isabella, a friendly voice called. It was Miki, a regular customer. When will Javier make the lemonade by himself? Some of us want to see if he learned your secret. Javier laughed. Not yet. Isabella says I still need practice. Isabella grinned. The secret ingredient isn't in the recipe. It's in the heart. Just then, a group of tourists walked in with cameras. They had heard about the rich man who gave up everything for his high school love. They wanted pictures of the famous lemonade stand. Sophia helped them, but Isabella noticed her daughter watching Javier. Sophia had been worried about her mother getting hurt again. But now, Isabella could see her daughter's heart was opening. Later that day, Javier found Isabella in the kitchen, baking. I got the final numbers, he said. After selling my shares and paying my debts, I'm not a billionaire anymore. Isabella wiped flour from her hands. Do you regret it? Javier hugged her close. My only regret is that it took me 28 years to find my way back to you. Isabella smiled. Better late than never. Javier chuckled. My dad told me something yesterday. He said watching you run this diner, seeing how you treat people like family, made him realize what he had been missing. Through the window, they saw Hector trying to make a pie, laughing as Sophia taught him. Isabella turned to Javier. Your mom called. She wants to see you before she leaves. Javier was quiet. What do you think I should do? Isabella held his hand. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting the past. Sometimes it means making space for a better future. Javier smiled at her. How did you get so wise? Isabella laughed. After 28 years of serving coffee and lemonade, you learn a lot about people. Sunlight shone through the window, lighting up a gold ring on a chain around Javier's neck. It was his father's ring, passed down to him, a promise to build a better future. Outside, a line was forming for lemonade, but this time, Isabella wasn't running the diner alone. She had a family now. Not the one she imagined as a teenager, but one built with love, forgiveness, and courage. Ready to try making lemonade again? She asked Javier. He kissed her softly. Only if you promise to teach me until I get it right. Isabella smiled. I'll teach you for another 28 years at least. The kitchen filled with the smell of pies, the sound of laughter, and the feeling of hope. Sometimes the best dreams aren't the ones you plan. They are the ones that find you when you're busy making lemonade. The morning sun shone over Phoenix. Isabella's place had grown, taking over the next store. The lemonade stand was now bigger, with a shiny copper roof, but the sign still read, Isabella's famous lemonade, still the best in Phoenix. Isabella stood in front of a mirror, fixing her simple white wedding dress. Sophia, in a blue bridesmaid dress, appeared at the door, holding yellow roses. Javier is already at the park, Sophia said with a smile. Isabella touched a locket holding a picture of Danny, her first husband. They would have loved this, getting married at the lemonade stand where it all began. Over the past year, a lot had changed. Dante Rojas got arrested. Hector helped put him in jail. Gabriela came back from California, finally admitting her mistakes and asking for a second chance. Camila Estrada ran away to Europe after her company failed. But before she left, she sent Isabella a note. You won. Not because you took him, but because you showed him who he really was. The community project had changed the neighborhood. Isabella's place was at its heart. Javier had found his true purpose, helping small businesses grow without pushing people out. Sophia handed Isabella her flowers. Ready, Mom? Isabella took a deep breath. She wasn't the young girl Javier had fallen in love with. She had wrinkles from years of smiling, gray hairs from years of wisdom. But as she walked to the park and saw Javier waiting under an arch of lemons and roses, she felt 17 again. Javier wore a simple suit, just like on their first date. Hector stood beside him as his best man. In the front row, Gabriela gave Isabella a small smile. Miki sat at a booth they had moved outside. The diner's Casdaniers filled the seats, cheering for Isabella and Javier. As Isabella walked down the aisle with her brother, she passed old pictures. Her and Javier at 17, the lemonade stand through the years, baby Sophia, the diner's first day, Javier baking pies, and Sophia graduating from school. Javier took Isabella's hands as they said their vows. 29 years ago, Javier said, I thought success meant leaving love behind. I built towers of glass and steel, but you built something stronger, a home, a family. Isabella's voice shook with emotion. I stayed here, not because I was waiting, but because I was growing. You didn't come back to save me. You came back to stand beside me. After the ceremony, they celebrated at the diner. Isabella wore her apron over her wedding dress as she and Javier served lemonade. Finally got the recipe right? Javier teased. Almost, Isabella said. Still needs something. Love, Sophia said with a giggle. That's the secret ingredient. Gabriela walked up, holding 2 envelopes. I know we said no gifts, but these are for Javier and Sophia. Trust funds I made years ago. Sophia opened hers in shock. You were watching over us? Gabriela wiped her eyes. From a distance. But maybe it's time I stop watching from far away. As the sun set, Isabella and Javier stood at the lemonade stand, just like that first summer. Want to know a secret? Isabella asked. The first time you came, I added extra sugar to your lemonade. I thought you were cute. Javier laughed. Want to know another secret? I hated lemonade back then, but I kept coming back anyway. And now? He kissed her. Now, I can't imagine life without it, or without you. Above them, the neon sign glowed. Isabella's place, where love is served daily. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out our other videos too. See you in the next one.